The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace. Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. Today we bring you a rebroadcast of an interview we did 10 years ago with the president of Yeshiva University, Richard Joel. When this interview is over, we did a follow-up interview with President Joel to see what he's accomplished in the 10 years since he took over as president of Yeshiva University.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. We have a very, very interesting man with us today. His name is Richard Joel. He's the new president of Yeshiva University. A couple of thousand people invested him, if there's such a word, a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to talk to him. He is a lawyer, a graduate of NYU, and he was the assistant dean at Cardozo. Then he ran the Hillel House, which is the Jewish students' unions basically on college campuses, and he was pretty happy with that. So we're going to find out why he changed roles, and let's find out exactly what Yeshiva University does. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leon. Pleasure to be here.
Full disclosure is I'm a graduate of Yeshiva University, so I may be subjective here. But tell my audience, the purpose of Yeshiva University is what?
The purpose of Yeshiva University is in many ways the ideal of what a purpose of a university is. It's to imbue young people with a sense of inspiration and a sense of knowledge to build a life that's value-based and that works to better humanity. Yeshiva University does it as a proud Jewish institution that was established originally as a Jewish house of learning, a yeshiva, that then grew when its leaders recognized that in order for its students to really make an impact on life, they needed to both to have a synthesis of the greatness in the Jewish story and Jewish values, coupled with a sense of wonder about the world, arts, and sciences. And it then, from that, grew into what is a quite significant university with 6,000 students and a $400 million budget, and doing great work in law and medicine and rabbinics and undergraduate scholarship.
Who founded the Yeshiva University?
Yeshiva University was founded by a group of immigrants and rabbis who wanted to make sure that their children would both carry on the traditions and the values of Jewish life, and were determined that they'd be able to do that while remaining a part of America and not being separatists. And it grew with the leadership of three of my three predecessors. I'm actually the fourth president in over 100 years.
He's a great man.
Dr. Belkin was a great man. He was preceded by Bernard Revel, who was a great rabbinic scholar who came from Europe, went into the oil business in Oklahoma, and then came to New York and built yeshiva into a college.
He was in the oil business?
He married into the oil business, but then he made a go of it. I mean, it's
really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting. My predecessors were Renaissance men. I mean, they just took a step back.
The Jewish world is, however, divided today, Richard, very divided. There's Orthodox, that's Central Orthodox or modern Orthodox, and then there's a very right-wing Orthodoxy who look a little bit at disdain with the Yeshiva University because they don't believe, or maybe they don't believe they should synthesize both the secular learning and the rabbinical learning. What do you say to those people?
Well, first I like to look at what unites us rather than divides us. We spend too much time dividing ourselves up. We're a small people and we keep making ourselves separate and smaller. There's a joke that if you have 3 Jews on a desert island, you have 4 synagogues because everyone wants to have a place that they refuse to go to. People are entitled to their worldview, and at a time of great confusion in the world when values are often absent, I understand people who say that the way to preserve what we have is to segment ourselves and devote ourselves to our values. The issue I have with that, and the issue that I think Yeshiva University has with that, is it's not why the Jewish people are here. We're not here to retreat, we're here to advance, and to advance civilization, and not just to defend civilization. The vision of Yeshiva University and of what we call Orthodoxy or modern Orthodoxy is that the idea of being a light unto the nations is not a reward, it's a challenge. And if Jewish values mean something, it means that understand who you are, where you fit in the universe, how you relate to the transcendent, and how do you view your history and your story and your values, how do you use that to impact on the world, to partner with God and with people of goodwill to make it better. Now that's often frightening when there are people who are too busy screaming so loud that they can't talk to each other. But the whole purpose of, I think, the people that you and I come from, right, is to move forward, to cross over from where we live to other places and to bring our values in partnership with other people, make the world better.
I'm going to ask you a very tough question, but I've done it a lot.
I'm shocked.
You won't. You may be. I asked it in Israel mainly of every minister I ever talked to. What is your definition of a Jew? I told you it would be tough.
Well, since I'm a lawyer, I have to say there are lots of ways to answer the question.
You're not a rabbi, correct?
I'm not a rabbi. I'm not a rabbi.
You're
but
the first non-rabbi to be president of Yeshiva University.
I'm the first non-rabbi.
Which is a big turn for Yeshiva University.
It is, but I'm also the first president of Yeshiva University whose son will be ordained a rabbi by Yeshiva University. Nice. So I have my pedigree going forward rather than going backward. Look, the classic definition of a Jew is someone who's born of a Jewish mother.
Right.
And that's the definition. But different people use different definitions.
Right.
Hitler had a broader definition. And I think the question is for what purposes. So if somebody comes to me and talks to me about Jewish life, I'm delighted to talk with them and to deal with them. When, as an Orthodox Jew, when the time comes for my son or daughter to marry, I hope it will be someone who will meet the legal definition, because Judaism's a legal system.
I asked this question of Ezer Weitzman, Ehud Olmert, and Rabbi Ravitz, who's head of a big party in the Knesset. Rabbi Ravitz said a Jew is a person who follows the Torah. That's a tough definition, and maybe not a tough definition. Ehud Olmert and Ezer Weitzman, who are both secular Jews, although Ezer was the president of Israel, thought it's the cultural and traditions of the values that you talked about which bring us back historically into a situation where we've improved the world. And I guess maybe it's I don't know, it's a combination of everything. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I like to look at it, basically we're a family. We're a large and growing family. And you're family because you're related by birth. And there are rules of what makes you related. If you want to marry into the family, there are ways to marry into the family. And you also have to buy into the values of the family. And
Sammy Davis did it with me.
Did he really?
Seriously. I took Sammy Davis to Israel, and he was drinking a little rum and Coke, so he was a little tipsy. When he got off the plane, he said, "Baby, I'm in my homeland." I said, "This is not Nigeria. This is Israel." He says, "You don't know. I converted." And he felt it in his own way. He felt it, and he did a reform conversion, which the Orthodoxy wouldn't accept, but he accepted it.
You don't have to be tipsy to feel special when you set foot in Israel, though.
That's right. Well, maybe you do.
Well, it makes you tipsy.
Makes you tipsy. So it's a great question. For those of you who don't know much Jewish history, basically when the Jewish temple was destroyed on the 9th day of Av, which is a Jewish month, twice, there were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the Pharisees were the rabbinics and the Sadducees were the priests, and basically they lost the power because the temple went down. So the rabbis went out and created synagogues, which were temples. And it's absolutely a brilliant move, because they kept it going for 5,000 years. Rabbinic Judaism is really what kept Jews alive.
Right, but the centrality of Rabbinic Judaism wasn't the synagogue, it was the Torah. It was the sacred story. It was the 5 books of Moses.
So they codified the oral Torah, and a fellow named Yehuda Nasi, Judah the Prince, codified the Torah, which was oral at that point, and brought it to the Jews. And then after, he created a thing called the Mishnah, and after the Mishnah came the Talmud, where everybody could argue left and right and back and forth as to really what the meanings were.
We believe that we have both
we're an intellectual people, basically, aren't we?
If you think about it. Absolutely.
No,
the word, look, we are both a tribe, we are a family, but we're an inspired family because our only heirloom is the word. And you speak of the Torah. We believe that there was the written Torah, which was the 5 books of Moses, which came from Sinai and went on. And as you say, after the destruction, the rabbinic leaders codified the code, the understanding of how did we understand the 5 books of Moses, and that was the Talmud. And what sustained the Jewish people for generations was the study of that code, the understanding of that code, the application of that code to new circumstances, and the decision not just to study, but to act upon those values and to inform civilization and to be the fountainhead of Western civilization. It's both loving our family, it's both learning the word, and it's saying our job is to share it.
Mario Como comes on the show every so often, and we talk theology. And he says that Judaism and Catholicism are basically the same. He's very big on tzedakah, which is charity, and tikkun olam, saving everybody. And you know, when you talk to Mario Como, we could interchange. He could be where I am, and I could be where he is, and it's beautiful. I mean, if you look at religions that bring people together and not cause friction, then it's a beautiful thing. What do you were listening to Richard Murphy, and the problem in Israel, that's a very important problem, and maybe Yeshiva University can play a role in this.
I think it can.
You heard me speak about Israel must be a Jewish state, otherwise what's the sense of having Israel as a democracy in Palestine? I mean, you agree, I'm sure.
Absolutely, but
how you heard the demographic problem, right? What do you think should be done over there?
Oh, the first thing that has to be done is to solidify the sense of Jewish peoplehood in Israel. What makes Israel special for the Jewish people is not just that it's a state. We have Florida. We don't need Israel. Yeah. Is that it's inherently a Jewish state. I believe Rabbi Soloveitchik, who was a great sage of the 20th century and probably for the millennia.
He was a big philosopher too.
Was a big philosopher.
He was not only a rabbi. He was a graduate of the University of Berlin in philosophy,
right. And was, of course, the major spiritual and Talmudic leader of Yeshiva University.
Right.
In talking about Israel, said something very important. He said that Sinai is the destiny of the Jewish people and Israel is its destination. That what makes Israel the destination of the Jewish people is that that's the place where, armed with their values, the Jewish people can live out their destiny. So what's first and foremost so important is that we keep our eye on that prize, and that we recognize that if we're there to be in Israel, we're there to be a purposeful people, and not just to be people. As that gets more and more solidified, which we all have to work on together, right? There's no better reason for that state to exist, and there's no better place for the Jewish people to be a light unto the nations. How to do that when there's a population that, despite everybody's efforts, has a core of it that's intent on the obliteration of the Jewish state.
And growing.
Is an intractable problem and has to be met, I think, both with firmness and strength and with always openness towards peace. So much of the whole liturgy of the Jewish people and on the high holidays, it centers around the longing for peace. But we know that peace isn't spelled P-I-E-C-E. And the word peace in Hebrew is shalom. And shalom doesn't just mean peace. It comes from the word shlemut, which means wholeness. That peace comes when there's a sense of completeness and wholeness. And when the world is discordant, there can't be peace. So I think that what Israel has to do is stay firm to its principles, stay resolute to its defense, because there is no obligation to suicide. There's a right to prevent suicide, and always remain open to sincere efforts to find resolution.
Do you think that this fence that they're constructing will be productive or counterproductive?
Again, you know, despite the fact that I'm a lawyer, I don't believe I'm an expert on everything. I do believe, personally, I'm careful not to speak institutionally. I do believe that
not as
people,
your personal opinion.
That I think the people of Israel are entitled to safety, and the obligation of their government is to ensure safety. And I think, having tried to give away, to make every kind of peace possible, I think at this point the responsibility of the government is to ensure the security of its people. And perhaps once it becomes clear to our neighbors that we are resolute and that we will not permit the slow destruction of our people, perhaps there will come those among the Palestinian people who I know are there, who say that we have to have the kind of state worthy of living in peace next to Israel. And I think that comes only through strength, but always with an ongoing longing for peace. You know, I think President Bush said something very wise last June when he said that there should be a Palestinian state, but only when it's prepared to act as a responsible state, to control its own citizens, and to ensure the integrity of its borders by making sure that it's not a staging ground for destruction.
Arik Sharon said the same in a cabinet meeting, and it was the first time it was ever heard from Arik Sharon's lips. I personally didn't believe I would hear it, but it was essential, I guess, that he bring that to his cabinet. Anyway, we'll cut for a break, come back with Richard Joel, the new president of Yeshiva University. It is not only a rabbinical school, it's got a medical school, a social work school, a medical school. I mean, you got a lot.
Law school, of psychology, school of education, school of Jewish thought.
It doesn't only host Jewish students in this graduate schools, they have many non-Jews. We'll be right back.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening, a book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD in Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs in Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're talking with Richard Joel, who is the new president of Yeshiva University, which is the oldest Orthodox university which combines secular studies in the United States. And I think it ranks about 40 maybe as one of the best schools in the country now.
40th?
40th.
And the top 3 research universities in the metropolitan area.
Wonderful.
With NYU and Columbia.
Great.
And my job is not to break it.
You may become a Princeton. You know, Princeton was a theological seminary at one time.
Princeton may become a yeshiva.
I doubt it. It's a possibility.
Let's hope.
Right. Talking to you, Richard, we know each other, you know, from way back, but not that close. You don't have any real problems with secular Jews, do you?
Problems? I love all people.
Yeah. In other words, what I sense in you is an openness. You would greet everybody as someone that you would like to engage. There are some Jewish people who think that if you talk or get involved with non-Jews or secular Jews, it's the worst thing in the world.
Those are people, frankly, who are impoverished. I had a mother and a father who taught me to really enjoy and learn from every person and see the value in it. And it's not just my mother and father. My Jewishness teaches me that.
When you were at Hillel, you probably met a lot of diverse students, correct?
You bet.
And
at Yeshiva too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the Yeshiva undergraduate has no non-Jews, is that correct?
The Yeshiva undergraduate has a program that attracts modern Orthodox students because they're looking for the environment and the double curriculum and the rigor.
Right. But the graduate schools
are
open, right?
Have everybody. When I was recently at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, which is an extraordinary place, I was introduced to one of my students, and they said, "I'd like you to meet this person who's a Jew," and it's spelled J-U, and a wonderful Asian student, and it's a great mix. And look, basically, our graduate schools are a gift of the Jewish people to the United States and to the world, and the whole idea here, universities have been in retreat ever since probably you and I protested and shut them down in 1970. And along with that kind of fear of students came a cultural relativism where we kept building a big tent, and somewhere along the way, universities became value-free zones. In an effort to allow people the rights to have their views, along came a culture that said, there are no better or worse views, you're not allowed to believe that your views are right, they're all relative. It's a sickness in our society. There's a better way to go, and I think Yeshiva really represents that, which is that we should be a pluralist community, which means that as a pluralist, I'm prepared to respect and honor your right to be wrong. To be wrong. And we can argue about that, so but this generation of young people is so hungry to build a life that works, that makes sense, that has some value to it, where they can matter. And all we have to do as educators is ennoble them with a sense of inspiration, and enable them by giving them the great wonder of ideas and the professional and pre-professional skills to be able to matter in the world. They're waiting to be given permission to advance civilization. And Yeshiva is a great place to do that, as was Hillel.
That's what I would talk to you about before we jump to Yeshiva. There is a lot of rumpus on campus now about Arab propaganda, Arab students. There is a feeling that the Palestinians have been refugees for a long period of time, that they are the victims, that the Israelis are the attackers, and it's permeating, I understand, through the college campuses. How severe a problem is that today?
A complicated question. I have to give you try to give you a short answer.
Well, you can take the time because it's a very important question.
There are several answers to that. Certainly there are on campuses Palestinians and Palestinian supporters and those who want to find causes, who take this cause and take it to extremes. And certainly whenever that happens, a campus is a place where all causes get exhibited.
Right.
And it can be very deleterious because the simplistic nature, with all the thinking and the nuance of universities, slogans are still very simple, and people want to follow easy slogans. And the case of, we are a people, we don't have our land, we want our land, is a compelling one. By the way, I agree. I think they should be able to live among the community of nations as soon as the leadership decides that they can behave as if they can be part of the community of nations.
Do you think the
Jewish students?
Richard, do you think most people at Yeshiva University feel the same way?
I would hope that there's a whole diversity of views because it's a very tough issue. But what do I think? I believe most serious Jews believe that if there was an opportunity for real peace, assured peace, and that Israel could live in peace, that people would pay serious prices to be able to have a Jewish state that could live in peace and integrity. But I think people have been burned too much, and they say, we're not going to move an inch because it's all lies.
Yeah, it's a very difficult period right now. It's a very, very tough period. All right, so go ahead. I interrupted you about Hillel.
Look, the truth of the matter is that the campuses are not aflame, and people don't wake up in the morning and say, how do we deal with the Palestinian problem? It's just not, it's not true. There are places where there have been serious eruptions and outrages of extremist and hateful rhetoric where pro-Palestinian becomes anti-Israel, where anti-Israel becomes anti-Semitic, and where hate reigns. And in those places, there have been strong and powerful responses. The truth of the matter is, though, in looking at activism, the job of Jewish young people on campus is not to persuade Palestinian supporters that they're wrong. The job of young Jews on campus is, first of all, to know their own story, to know the compelling nature of Israel, to be able to understand what a compelling case Israel makes. The only democracy in the Middle East, the only place in the Middle East where a woman can have an equal conversation with a man, the only country in the Middle East that yearns and works for peace, the only country in the Middle East that was willing to give up enormous amounts of land that it conquered in a defensive war to make peace, the only place that honors freedom of religion. in the Middle East. That catechism, unfortunately, is a catechism that many young Jews come to campus not knowing. And it seems to me the first responsibility is to make sure that the young Jews on campus know that they're Jews and know that there's something to be proud of. Because they're not going to be defenders of Israel if they don't know why they should defend Israel. They're not going to want to defend Israel if they don't understand that it's their homeland and their land. So Agenda 1 is to make sure that the Jewish people know that they should be proud because they are owners of a proud story, and we have a lot of work to do with the rest of the world. Number 2, 80% of young people, Jews who come to campus, have never been to Israel because 80% of their parents have never been to Israel. That's why programs like Birthright Israel have been enormously successful, and but for the Intifada, which really made people terribly afraid, it would have had a much more profound impact than it's had, but it's had a profound impact already. When young people go to Israel and they connect with their Jewish story, and they connect with their forebears, and they see their futures, they have an ineffable sense of Jewish pride that equips them for a lifetime, and in that context they understand how special Israel is. So when it gets to campus, the first issue is make sure they know that they're Jews and they know how proud that is. Secondly, make sure that they should understand Israel not just as a land of refuge, but a land to advance the Jewish story. And the third is to equip them with the advocacy skills, not to be polemicists, but to convey facts, and to convey facts to other Jewish students and to other students on campus and faculty of goodwill. We have to be vigilant when some faculty, on the extreme, abuse their classroom and make it into a place for political polemics. And we have to answer that strongly. But I'm much more concerned that students on campus celebrate their Jewishness and act in support of Israel than they are in answering the haters.
How big is Hillel on the campuses today?
Thank God, it's terrific. We have Hillel Enterprise. They have Hillel Enterprises on about 120 campuses in the United States, 27 Hillels in the former Soviet Union, 3 Hillels, soon to be 4 in Israel, 3 Hillels, soon to be 4 in South America.
Really?
And that's all, most of that has been, outside of the United States, has been recent.
Who funds Hillel?
You do.
Private,
Jewish community.
Private?
The Jewish community funds it, and the community of Jewish federations provides about 20% of the support. The rest come from people who care.
Right. It sounds like it was a very exciting job. So why did you move?
It's Don Quixote's fault. I've always loved Yeshiva University. It's been a defining feature in my life. And even though I've proudly run the largest Jewish campus network in history, the 3 of our 6 children who came of college age chose to go to Yeshiva University because they felt that for them, with their commitments and with their desire to learn and grow Jewishly, that was the place.
Was it a tough?
It was one of the toughest decisions that we ever had to make.
How long did it take you to make that decision?
Well, when the search process began 2 years ago, I was contacted by the committee. I said no.
It took a long time to get a president for Yeshiva University. Why did it take so long?
I think it took so long because it's a very hard job, and I think the leadership had to really struggle with what they wanted in a leader. And they went through a search process. People like me, some people like me, didn't want to be a part of it. I knew they were looking for a rabbi philosopher king, and I would hope that they'd get a rabbi philosopher king. I was not that. So when I was asked to become a candidate, my answer was no. Also because Hillel was compelling, and I know how difficult the university presidency is. A year and a half later, they came back to me and said, we want to talk seriously because we've thought about what we want, and we think that what you are and what you represent might be that. I said no again, but they were persistent, and it always pays to be persistent. And Yeshiva has been so central to our lives, and I think if my work at Hillel mattered, right, the larger Jewish community desperately needs a serious, well-educated, committed Jewish community to be in full partnership with them moving forward if the Jewish people are going to advance. Yeshiva University is a place for that. How did I decide? My wife and I went to see Man of La Mancha on its way to Broadway.
Really? I had a piece of that show.
Did you? Well, I contributed to it.
But I got to tell you, it closed.
It shouldn't have closed. But the quick story is we didn't know what to do. And I'm the kind of guy who goes into a theater and I open the playbill and I keep a pen to write something down. There's a line in Man of La Mancha said by the Cervantes character. He said that madness is seeing the world as it is and not as it ought to be. And I started crying. And then, of course, that deep voice going, this is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless. Well, that was Richard Kiley was the first time. This time it was, it escapes me.
Yeah,
but it was wonderful. Right, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far. And Esther and I walked out of the theater. tears coming down our face.
Really?
And my wife turned to me and said, Richard, maybe we're supposed to do this. So joyously, not as a sacrifice, as an investment. And I don't believe when people say you made the sacrifice, Jews are the people who eliminated human sacrifice. Jews believe in investment. And you believe in investment because you get a return. I think this is going to be, with God's help and with the goodwill of my colleagues, this will be a serious investment that my family and I make, and I think the return is enormous.
All right, we got to cut for a break, and we'll come back with Richard, and we'll ask him where he expects to take Yeshiva in the next 10 years. It's not easy to get a collegial atmosphere amongst any group, and Yeshiva could be a trying experience, but he looks like he's ready. So we'll find out in about a minute.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD in Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs in Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're talking to Richard Joel about Yeshiva University, where he is the new president, but also about Judaism, its focus, its relationship with other religions. That's an interesting question. Islam, Christianity, Judaism, they're all monotheists. Mm-hmm. Why shouldn't we all be getting along pretty well? And as a president of Yeshiva, you're a spokesman for basically the Jews of America.
Well, as president of Yeshiva, I'm president of Yeshiva. You know, there are lots of people within the different faith communities that can get along well, as long as one isn't extreme in what one wants to impose on others on the one hand, or on the other such a relativist that they say differences don't matter. We are not the Christians, and we're not Muslims. We're Jews. We believe that we are the possessors of the Torah. We believe that we have a special relationship with God, and we believe that we have a role in the world. But you know, it's a penitential season. When we look to the future days, we're not a people who say, the day will come when everybody will be Jewish. We say the day will come when people of goodwill will recognize God's supremacy and will work with us together to better humanity and humankind. That's why we're not a proselytizing religion. Why don't we get along? Hopefully we're all still in training to aspire to the levels of humanity. You know, it's interesting, Judaism, without making reference to the others, Judaism doesn't use our humanity as an excuse. The phrase, you're only human, is not Jewish. In Judaism, humanity is your challenge. We're created in the image of God. You're human. The role of a place like Yeshiva, whether it's with the Jewish students undergraduate or whether with Mr. Jew at Einstein, is to challenge them to be human, and is to equip them, informed by the gifts of the Jewish people, right, to build lives of meaning and excellence. And that's the great thing that Yeshiva can be. It's an incubator.
Let's say 10 years from now, what would you like to see Yeshiva University? What would it be in your goal?
I think Yeshiva University should be the incubator for leadership of the Jewish people, training wonderful students to ennoble the world, that our doctors will not only be great scientists, but also will say that there's passion that we bring to our work, to our healing work, that it's a sacred work, whatever one's approach to faith is. That our lawyers say that if a line from Injustice for All, if you ain't honest, you ain't nothing. I think that's in the finest traditions of the Benjamin Cardozo School of Law. And I also believe that we are an incubator for quality leadership with a particular focus on the Jewish people. In 10 years, our School of Education will be non-parel. The Rabbinical School, which is already non-parel, will do a first-class job of supplementing the learning with the professional skills and the guidance skills so that our graduates can build and continue to build communities of caring and meaning around the country and the world. I think that our School of Social Work really talks about your vision of how do we bring different people together in quality ways without people believing in nothing, but profoundly believing in what they believe in. The incubator for leadership is important, and the theme that I enunciated in my investiture is that this has to be a school committed to ennobling and enabling. It's the finest traditions of Jewish life, and it's the finest traditions of the dream that is a university.
Are you worried about
every day?
The way, I'm sure, every hour. About how terrorism has transformed our world today?
When I walked with Mayor Bloomberg, Ambassador Ayalon, and extraordinary students through Amsterdam Avenue, which is one of the safest areas in New York, right, on my investiture day in a very public ceremony.
Right.
I didn't celebrate that there were sharpshooters on the roof.
Scary.
Right? Now, by the way, Yeshiva, in fact, the main campus and the Midtown campus are in the safest areas of New York. We walk proudly and safely. We have wonderful relationships with our good communities. The truth of the matter is that public occasions are occasions when lunatics can direct their outrage.
So, Richard, your opinion, what causes these fundamentalists to behave the way they do? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I think it's I think it has something to do, in my humble opinion, I think it has something to do with the shrinking of the world and with globalization. I think the paradox is that as the world's gotten smaller, right, everything's more complicated.
I made a speech in Israel with some media people to the social workers of Israel, big convention. And I said the advent of 24-hour news created these terrorists. And because if they don't get the TV and they don't get the support, who's going to know what they're doing?
I think that's right. But when you speak from an emotional point of view, an individual young person feels more anonymous now than they ever have before.
That's true.
And in that anonymity, and in a society where often values aren't clear, people want to get through the ambiguity and they want absolutes. They then become suckers and victims of people with black and white answers. There's only one problem with black and white. It doesn't leave any space for color.
Right, no gray.
Never on gray, no technicolor.
Yeah.
Young people deserve some color in their lives.
But when you grow up, and I grew up, we never had this type of fear. This brutal terrorism, suicidal bombers. This is something that the world, you know, I tell this to my kids today, it's just something that we really knew nothing about. And again, you know, the United States itself was never attacked except during Pearl Harbor. So it's a transformed world.
Well, sure. Remember, we believed that the oceans were impregnable barriers, and we sat on an island.
And Yeshiva has a tremendous role now because the universities are places. You know, there's also danger in any group becoming fundamental.
Of course.
You know, today or yesterday they convicted 3 Jewish terrorists in Israel, and they put them into jail. Fundamentalism basically is.
But we have to distinguish between fundamentalism and being passionate. Okay. Passion is a great gift, and people having passionate views and having strong beliefs are fine as long as they approach it with kindness and with humility and with an outstretched hand, not with a fist. And what's special about my opportunity now is that Yeshiva is a global university, and the influence it can have can really be global, and hopefully can be a leader among the community of universities too.
Do you have any Yeshiva University programs in Israel now?
Yes, there is a campus, in fact, in Jerusalem.
Is that right?
And in Bayat Vagan, where we have a postgraduate Talmudic center. And I'm going just in a couple of weeks to Israel with a couple of other leaders to begin a conversation. We have 2,000 alumni of Yeshiva living in Israel now, and we're beginning a conversation on what's the value added if Yeshiva is to expand its view. Since we are the university committed to the synthesis of timeless values and modernity, and one that speaks to each other, doesn't scream at each other, we think that we have some value to add to Jewish life and to the state of Israel, but we want the people of Israel to tell us what we should be doing.
You also have a college for women called Stern College for Women.
An extraordinary place.
And how large is that school?
We have about 1,300 undergraduate women, both studying liberal arts and taking a business curriculum at our Sim School of Business. And they are extraordinary women. They're strong, they're traditional, they're deeply learned both Jewishly, and they have extraordinarily high acceptance rates to graduate and professional schools. They have a terrific faculty. They've grown from being a small school to basically being a campus within the city. They're in the 34th Street area. We have 7 different buildings and a cultural center and dormitory life. And it's a great place. And it's a great place sitting together with the men's college, which is in the Heights, and together they're forming the future of the Jewish people.
Your predecessor, Dr. Lamb, and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he said one of the real problems with the young today, especially Orthodox, is getting them together in a social fashion so that they can go on and get married, because they sort of pre-screen people to the point where it's impossible to have these people really meet on a free basis.
Yeah.
And he says that's a huge problem.
Yeah, our community became balkanized and became almost methodical in how a young man and a young woman meet each other. My only answer to that is the weekend of my investiture. I insisted that before my investiture, I be hosted at Stern College for a Sabbath weekend with both undergraduate men and undergraduate women together. We'd put about 130 men in the Bedford Hotel. And we had a 25-hour period of men, women, faculty hosting me, celebrating our Jewishness together. That, I think, is a harbinger for the direction in which we're going to go. And the whole community wants that. Our rabbinic leadership wants that. The students want it. Lord knows the parents want it. We have to end the madness. We have to respect the modesty of men and women and the Jewish legal ramifications of how men and women relate to each other. But they relate to each other as equals, and 50% of the population should be friends with the other 50% of the population.
It's a good goal. This man has great goals, and we got to give him courage to keep going, because it's not only for Jews. That we're creating, or he's creating, a university which is important for the world, because what he's... Bear in mind, and again I repeat, that they're not all Jewish people. I mean, the Cardozo School, Einstein School, these are people who are not Jewish, but again, the same inspiration is desired there. He wants to build great leadership who have terrific humanity. You expect to start any other schools, graduate schools? Too early to know.
Not this week.
No? How about next week? We got time.
I think we have, frankly, I think we have the infrastructure in place. I do think we have to be a stronger
Is there a great
presence.
demand to go to the college? I mean, give me a statistic.
How
many people apply and how many get in?
I can't give you that statistic because I don't know it, but I can tell you that there are more students studying undergraduate at Yeshiva University by far than ever in our history, and that there are about 700 undergraduates taking their first year of study in seminaries and yeshivot in Israel as part of a Yeshiva University program. And I can tell you that the qualifications for admission go up every year. And we have hundreds of students in our rabbinical training program, and thankfully, for the first time in a generation, pursuing a career as an educator is now cool, and it is hot, and that's a terrific opportunity.
But the real big question, Richard, is how's the basketball team?
Watch it this year.
When I played for Yeshiva, we were 16-2. We were the best team in the history of Yeshiva.
We can make a spot for you, Leon.
Really? I had a fellow.
We have a new gym now. It's really quite fantastic.
Where is that? Really?
On the Wolf campus uptown, we have a beautiful gym. I'll bring you to a game.
Sarachek, who was a great coach at Yeshiva University, even gave me a few dollars of scholarship at that time.
Well, we still do that, and his student Johnny Halpert is our coach. I'll tell you that we have a an Italian Jew and an Israeli Jew, and they're not ringers because they're bona fide undergraduate students.
Your school in psychology is supposed to be one of the best in the country. I know people who've tried to get in there. You have very small spots. Why is it? Most Jews are Meshuggah?
Most Jews want to make other people see the light.
Right.
For Furcaf Graduate School, it's a first class. You sound too surprised, Leon. There are many of the schools of yeshiva, they're really first class. Furcaf I can brag about because my wife has her PhD from there.
Is that right?
In psychology. It's a rigorous school. It has a wonderful faculty. It's deeply committed to what it's doing, and it's built up a record of excellence. And like most yeshiva schools, it combines rigorous academia with a view towards public service and making a difference. People want that.
You also, by the way, have feeder schools. You have high schools,
We
right?
have two extraordinary high schools, a men's and women's high school, and hopefully we do more and more to support the whole network of Jewish day schools around the country that are really our feeders in many ways. But our Yeshiva University high schools are something of magnet schools. In the last few years they've enjoyed much support. And one of the things we're looking to is to say, how do we invest better in using all the resources of the university to make those schools really into laboratories? So yes, you bet. And we have a great museum, Yeshiva University Museum, which we call YUM, which is part of the Center for Jewish History on 16th Street off of 5th Avenue, with wonderful exhibits, and we use our students in lots of learning capacities there too.
After 10 years, the Leon Charney Report returned to Yeshiva University and spoke with Richard Joel and asked him what he believes he's accomplished in the decade since he took over as president of Yeshiva University.
It's been a privileged 10 years for me, and it's been a decade as tumultuous as the society that we're proudly a part of. Certainly in tangible ways, the campuses have been renewed physically. New construction has happened. We have at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, there's a great multi-$100-million research facility on the Wilf campus, which houses Yeshiva College and the Rabbinical School. There's a wonderful new study hall and academic building. The campus is much more a campus. We've acquired a good number of apartment houses surrounding the campus, and this has become much more of a community with a strong Jewish identity, even as we have wonderful relations with our neighbors. I think that at Stern College there have also been great changes. Cardozo has had a physical facelift. Those are not unimportant realities, but that really doesn't, that's external dressing. You have to dress up nicely to reflect what's inside, but what's inside is most important. The faculty is now a world-class faculty. It has grown on an undergraduate level by over 100 full-time faculty members. The quality of their teaching, research, and participation and mentoring of students is extraordinary. In the last 10 years, our undergraduate honors programs have absolutely taken hold, and we have students who spend 4 years here doing honors work and honors theses. The quality of our student body and the manner in which they're accepted to the best graduate and professional schools and professional opportunities has never been higher, and that's terrific. I also think that the environment, and this is probably the most important thing, this is a noble place. 10 years ago, I spoke about university life needing to be ennobling and enabling. And because of enormous help from people around me, it's become so. The human being and the human being's potential towards nobility and towards greatness and towards mattering really is a defining part of our cultural reality at Yeshiva University today in a way that it was not yet at. I think there's a main difference at Yeshiva over the last 10 years in the responsibility that we take to be a university without walls. That very much the impact of Yeshiva is felt beyond the campus, both in terms of programs that we do around the country and around the world, in terms of programs that we do in terms of continuing education for rabbis, for the community, for Jewish education, the partnership role we now play with the world of the yeshiva and the day school in terms of working on their continued growth and in terms of issues of sustainability and curricular development and continuing education of faculty. I think the notion of campus life is unique at Yeshiva, particularly among our undergraduates, because so when in years past we might have talked about the distinctiveness of Yeshiva being that it's a dual curriculum of sacred studies and worldly wisdom, I think it goes beyond that now, and this is really a living environment. That education has to be. William Butler Yeats said that education is not filling a bucket, but it's lighting a fire. Look, the rating systems can tell us that we're among the top 50 universities in the United States. That's very nice. It doesn't hold a lot of meaning to me. If you really want to say what is the purpose and meaning of Yeshiva University, it's to believe in civilization, to believe that the Jews' sacred story is important both for the Jews and for the world, and that our people have a mandate and a capacity to live life tied to their laws and traditions and embracing worldly wisdom in such a way that they believe we have a mandate to matter in the world by partnering both with the transcendent and with people of goodwill to make it better, to advance civilization. One of the things we're all concerned about these days is whether we have morphed education into being nothing more than dumping of information onto young people, and have abandoned what has long been the purpose of education, which is to create Renaissance people, to have people care about civilization, to believe that the individual can matter and can matter as part of a community, to believe that there's nobility to the Western tradition, and that we believe in something more than shopping. And education does that, and our education does that. I'd also want to say that one of the things that the Leon Charney report, and Leon Charney, because that is what the Leon Charney report is, what it represents is something that we have to worry about becoming an endangered species. The notion of a full and deep exploration of issues and ideas, of pushing individuals to be able to not speak in sound bites, but be able to talk about issues and ideas and values, and for that to be able to be a forum where lots of people can tune in, not to a cheap and dirty flinging of accusations, but to a real conversation in a values context, is critically important. And it's important. Look, it shaped Leon's life, and Leon's life shaped a lot of our lives. But it continues to shape his life, and that of his wife and partner Tzili. But I would say that we have to recommit to the notion of having sacred conversations of meaning, and to realize that that's how society moves forward. And so I'm very happy to be a part of anything that has a Charney name on it.